Thank you, Willow. Good afternoon, and congratulations to the new graduates of the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. Amazing achievement, guys. It's a great honor to be asked to speak at a school that's become synonymous with diversity and inclusion in media. I'll do my best today not to make you regret that. One of the most popular recipes in the history of the New York Times cooking section is for bosam, a whole pork shoulder that's cured in salt and sugar, then it's slowly roasted until you can pull the meat straight off the bone. Towards the end of the cooking process, you glaze it with brown sugar and its own rendered fat. It gets this crunchy, sweet, dark mahogany crust. It's delicious. I should know because it's my recipe. But here's something else I know. My bosam bears no resemblance whatsoever to actual bosam. If you go to a Korean restaurant and order bosam, you're going to get pork belly, not pork shoulder. It'll be steamed, not roasted, and it'll be chewy in a way that Korean people appreciate, not fall apart tender in the way that Americans prefer. My version of bosam is based on a true story, but it's really more of a prank. Let me explain. Because I happen to have some clout in the food world and the recipe is published in the paper of record, there are diners right now sitting in Koreatown ordering bosam and getting a platter of steamed pork belly and wondering what the hell is going on. The image of bosam in their heads is the one I've served them. And at this moment, it's occurring to all of them that it was a mistake, a huge mistake, to base their idea on Korean food on what I said. Simultaneously, there are just as many Korean restaurateurs that are angry with me for being a false prophet of bosam and Korean food. Honestly, it all makes me so happy. I'm happy because it's one of the few real chances I've had in my career to affect people's idea of what's true. As a chef, opportunities to change minds don't come about very often. Diners arrive at a restaurant with a firm idea of the truth. What's delicious, what's not, what's medium rare, etc., etc. It takes something pretty extraordinary to tell them that they're wrong and have them leave happy at the same time. So generally, it's smarter to show them through truth, through deliciousness, than try to instruct them in authenticity. As cooks, our first job is to nurture our diners. Our work goes into people's bodies, and we take that responsibility very, very seriously. But most of the time, someone who isn't cooking, someone who couldn't cook themselves out of a paper bag, gets to control the narrative about our work. I'm referring here to food critics in case that wasn't clear. They're not all that bad. It's not so much the fact that critics have this authority that upsets me, but that they play so fast and loose with it. I'm telling you this because many of you will be in a similar position someday. You may not think so, given the way our culture talks about the media, but deep down, people want to trust what they read and hear. They want to believe you. This is your privilege and responsibility. Regardless of what you intend to do with your degree, you're ostensibly here at this school because you're interested in determining how people see the world. And as graduates of this esteemed institution, you've earned an incredible power to reveal and shape our truth. Whatever your aspirations, the field you are entering is the battlefield of the next century. Truth has become our most precious and most limited commodity. Everybody seeks to own it, sell it, control it. And once they have it, they will go to great lengths to defend their position. Make no mistake, guys, you're going out to war and you're shipping out today. The problem is, you're going to find out very quickly, if you haven't already, that the truth isn't a shared commodity. What I know in my heart to be delicious, you might view as inedible. This happens all the time. So how are you supposed to know whether or not something tastes good? How are you supposed to know that you're doing the right thing? In short, you don't. And regardless of what they say, neither does anyone else. People will hold on for dear life to what they want to be true, for fear that relaxing their grip will leave them empty-handed. But if you ask me, any truth that needs to be clenched just to keep it together isn't worth holding on to. Clinging to what you want to be true, that's the lazy way. And listen, I understand. Believe me, I do. People don't have the patience for uncertainty. They want immediacy. They want tidy answers. They want to know where to eat and when to eat it. Here's the thing. Today, any AI chatbot can scour the internet and pop out a best restaurants list that's pretty good. Personally, I want to eat at the place next door to the place on that list. I want to find out what else might be true. And let me put it another way. And parents, you may want to cover your ears with earmuffs on this one. In the not so distant future, you may find yourself at a career crossroads where you'll have to choose between continuing down the path you started today or to turn into a new direction. When that happens, you'll be terrified that the time and effort you've invested in your career so far will go to waste. I'm here to tell you that holding on to a plan out of fear is not a winning strategy. We are too reverential of fear. Whether it's the fear of looking foolish or disappointing people, or the fear saying you are wrong. I am wrong all the time. It's fine to be afraid, but it would be tragic to let it hold you back. I have a very close friend of mine who always says, everything you want is on the other side of fear. I'm pretty sure he stole that line, but I know he's right. And this afternoon, you're all basically at the same starting point. From here on, you're going to need to distinguish yourself from your former classmates. I encourage you to embrace fear. Learn the other side of the coin. Be entrepreneurial. Drive a truck. Be a gardener. Try your hand as a forest ranger. Anything. Do something you're not supposed to do. And yes, even if it means turning away from the degree you earned today, then so be it. I promise you guys, the skills you've acquired in this school, right? Your degree today will serve you well even if you change course. Nothing is wasted unless you fail to immerse yourself completely in the next thing. Just so you don't think I'm giving you untested advice and commencement speech platitudes, let me note that I studied religion in college and was gainfully unemployable. I graduated with a C+, and I was headed for a job in New York where I knew I wasn't going to keep up with my peers. Even if I was going to be good at something, I'd probably wind up in the middle. And within a year or two, I found my way in the kitchen. Not some culinary epiphany, but honestly was sort of the only job I could get. It wasn't a calculated career move. There really weren't prospects for cooks like there are today. You could see the top of the ladder from the bottom step. The word foodie didn't exist back then. But I wanted to try. I was so curious. I liked the idea of getting instantaneous feedback, of working on my feet, getting to touch things with my hands, getting instantaneous feedback, finding out right away if other people found the same things to be delicious as I did. My parents were simply not happy with this idea. My dad immigrated to America in 1963 and worked almost 30 years in restaurants to ensure that none of his kids would step foot in a restaurant to work there. Dying one thing, to work there is another. But becoming a cook was my chance to find out what lies on the other side of fear. And, as it turns out, studying religion proved to be extremely useful in the kitchen and in my business life in general. Studying religion taught me to see the world beyond myself. and to search for shared connections between people with completely different beliefs. Ask anyone who's ever worked for me, and they'll tell you I cite the Hindu Bhagavad Gita and early Christian theologians more often than you would think was possible. And going back when I started cooking, I worked 80-plus hour weeks. I showed up like 3 to 4 hours early just to keep up with everybody. I was dead broke. I literally stored most of my belongings in those heavy-duty plastic trash bags. I had burns all over my arms. I had cuts on my hands. Every day was a struggle. I toiled in basements in front of hot stoves. It's really not that glamorous. I doubted myself every day. I wanted to quit every single day, but I gritted it out because doubt and pain are the crucibles in which we forge what we truly love. Back in 2004, I opened my first restaurant, Momofuku Noodle Bar in the East Village of New York City. I moved into a studio apartment. It was really a closet with a bed, so I could literally walk across the street to work. There was never anything in the fridge. It was always dark and dank and full of cockroaches. One day, my dad came to visit. I was nervous that my state of affairs would confirm everything he'd warned me about pursuing a life in restaurants. I didn't even know he was coming up. It was a total surprise. He took a look at me, and he said, "Son, you're gonna make it." It was the first time in my life, in my entire relationship with my father, that he'd ever expressed any kind of faith in me. And it was because he could see that I was all in. There was no turning back, no safety net, no distractions, just me and this dream I needed to be true. And every truth begins this way, as a possibility that must be tested. My favorite truths come as a total surprise. For instance, it's quite possible that someday, some of you will actually become chefs. It's not crazy. It's also possible that what you've learned these past few years will actually be the difference between being a good chef and a great chef. I know this is possible because I'm walking the reverse path. A few years ago, I decided to try my hand at your field of work. I started a company called Majordomo Media, where we make TV shows and podcasts and books and videos, mostly about food, but we're branching into other fields of interest too. We built a studio in downtown LA, and we're making a big bet on ourselves to succeed, and I am terrified. So were my years in the kitchen a waste? I'd argue not, because everything I'd ever seen or done before informs what we're doing right now. We're going to take the same approach to storytelling that I did to cooking, which means stripping away all the BS, digging down to the core of what's most useful, most compelling, and ultimately what's most delicious. I'm always searching for those undeniable moments that stop you dead in your tracks, because that's what a great dish is. It's when you're eating something with your friends or your family members and nobody's talking. It's dead silence. All conversation halts at the table. And that food that you're eating, it doesn't have to be complex, it doesn't have to be fancy or cool. In fact, I want to explore what's uncool. I want to spend time with bad ideas. We got a bad idea fan. I love bad ideas, guys. I really love bad ideas, especially when an idea has been declared bad without any evidence or data supporting it. It gives me the chance to ask whether it's a really bad idea or if it's only a bad idea because everyone else has simply been too embarrassed or lazy or scared to test it. Sometimes, honestly, most of the time, a bad idea is just that. It's bad. But every so often, rooting around in the garbage will yield a piece of treasure that everyone else has missed. Let me tell you one last cooking story. When I started out, I was in cooking school in New York, and I was trying to learn about everything, about soups and stocks, and I asked my culinary instructor at the time if we could do a project on pork soups and stocks. Pork stock, if you don't know already, is the backbone of many, many delicious things around the world, especially Asia. But pork soups and stocks, they don't really play a big role in the Western canon, where the French built a culinary tradition based around chicken, beef, and fish stocks. Anyway, when I approached my instructor, I asked Chef if we could learn about pork soups and stocks. And he said to me, pork stock is for savages. If I could do it in a French accent, I would. At the time, I felt incredibly small, stupid, and ashamed. But as the years have gone by, I've managed to sell a few bowls of that pork soup, that disheartening 5-second conversation I had. That 5-second conversation was literally the most important lesson I learned in cooking school. Too often, we're bequeathed these soft truths that harden into rules. They're all around us. Ethnic food, it has to be cheap. Immigrant restaurants, they use poor ingredients. Microwaves, they're terrible for you. MSG, that makes you sick. These are opinions masquerading as fact, and they inflict real and lasting harm. They weigh down communities and close us all off from enlightenment, beauty, and deliciousness. And this is my advice to you guys, my fortune cookie wisdom. My advice to you is to reject inherited truth. Reject inherited truth, guys. Question everything on your own. Don't take people's word for it. And conversely, understand the power you've been given to shape others' truth. Keep searching. Do not be afraid to change your mind. And in closing, always remember this. David Chang created noodles, domesticated the pig, and I invented the bosam. Thank you very much.